You, me, and HIFMB. Stories of Science and the Sea.
Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of the HIFMB podcast. In this one we're back with good audio quality in the intro as well, so the entire episode is good quality again. So in this episode I talked to Lukas Meysick, who is a community ecologist, a postdoc, who works on, used to work on seagrass in his PhD. He now works on benthic ecology of the Wadden Sea and into the role that seagrass can play in clearing polluted water. And that project is in collaboration with Tanzania and South Africa. And we look into his most recent scientific publication and his entire career in science. So without further ado, I give you Lukas Meysick. Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the HIFMB podcast. And today I have Lukas Meysick, a postdoc at HIFMB. Welcome.
Hello, thanks Jan.
Yeah, no worries. What do you do at HIFMB?
As you said, I'm a postdoc.
Yeah.
I started 1.5 years ago, and I'm focusing on climate change effects on benthic communities, mostly in the Wadden Sea now. So we did a few mesocosm experiments on heat waves and how benthic ecosystems respond to heat waves.
Just so everybody knows, because there's people listening who are not scientists, hopefully.
Okay.
So benthic is anything on the seafloor.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's correct. So all the soft sediment worms and bivalves, how they are affected from heat stress due to heat waves, especially summer heat waves, and how this will also affect basically their functioning in the whole ecosystem. For example, like how they mix the sediment, how they filtrate particles out of the water column and stuff like this. So that's currently the main focus. But
and where do you do those mesocosm experiments, right? Is it in the Wadden Sea or? Yeah,
it's in Sylt actually, Avi Sylt. So
one of the major German islands.
Yeah. It's
And that's what you've been doing all summer, right? Pretty
much.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there's a few experiments we also are currently doing. We did last year in Finland still, where I did my PhD.
We're gonna get into that.
So similar topic, also like responses to heat stress. Of benthic organisms, but like in a different system in the Baltic Sea.
But is it a coincidence that, because so you also work on seagrass, which we're going to get into in a second, and that Sylt has one of the largest seagrass beds in the Wadden Sea, right? Or does it? I don't know.
I think it might. It sounds correct. At least I know they have huge problems in the Netherlands with their seagrass meadows, and they. Like scientists from the Netherlands quite often come to actually Sylt to collect seeds and seedlings for restoration projects. That's what I've heard.
But that's not why you're doing your...
No. That was just coincidence. So
right. Okay.
I haven't really been working with seagrass since I got my postdoc position here at HIFMB.
Yeah, right.
So that was kind of my expertise back then and during my PhD studies. Yeah.
But you would consider yourself a seagrass expert?
Expert, or maybe I don't know, maybe more like I don't know. I like seagrasses. I'm probably not there to call myself an expert yet. Let's hope maybe in a few years. But
okay. Yeah. But you also recently started a new project that involves seagrass, right?
Yeah.
To an extent.
So this was also more coincidence. So actually just. Like Ruud from the administration here at HIFMB asked me if I want to be involved in this project in Africa, in both in Tanzania and South Africa, on watershed pollution and how seagrasses can help to reduce pollution in coastal areas. So
that's
that's what we try to find out. But
but where does the hypothesis come from? That they do?
Well, first of all, they take up a lot of nutrients.
Right.
So they reduce nutrients that like watershed nutrient input. At the same time, they stabilize sediment. They filter particles out of the sediment. So they have quite a big effect on water clarification in general.
Yeah, right.
Like also like the light penetration through the water, which then in turn can also benefit, for example, like adjacent ecosystems like coral reefs or sponge gardens, whatever you have there. So the hypothesis is that with help of with seagrasses we can kind of promote also other ecosystems that are nearby and that might be threatened due to pollution.
Yeah, right. Sweet. And so how you got involved is not because of your seagrass expertise, but
well, actually a bit like I think there's not so many people here at HFB who work with seagrass, and we just said like, well, we had this idea to do something with seagrass with our collaborators from South Africa and Tanzania. Would you like to be involved? And I said, yeah, of course.
Yeah, great.
That sounds cool.
And what's the project called, first of all?
It's called Somewhat. So now let me think. It's nature-based solutions for watershed pollution. So. So the whole it's funded by the GIZ. They have this like Mehrwissen initiative that funds collaborations between African and German partner institutes.
Yeah, what does GIZ stand for again?
Das ist Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit.
Ah, okay, right.
Yeah.
Society for International Collaboration.
Yeah, that's correct. I would guess so.
Yeah,
that this is their direct translation.
Yeah.
And so this is now the third call, and they fund projects that this call was based on or was looking on nature-based solutions. So how ecosystems can facilitate also like coastal areas, and how with the help of ecosystems we can reduce some, for example, like watershed pollution or some other issues that are induced by humans.
Yeah, I'm always a bit shaky on the nature-based solutions definition. Is that what it means, pretty much? Like you just said.
That's
I
don't know. I hope so. Yeah. That's at least how I think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
perfect.
Using like part of nature to actually tackle some anthropogenic stressors, I would guess.
Yeah.
So
and some issues that come up to bite us in the end again.
Yeah.
Okay, and part of the project is also the restoration of seagrass. So first you would see whether it actually solves or immediate pollution, and then you would try to plant some.
No, not really. I think that's more like an outlook, depending on what kind of response we get. But the idea is to, well, first of all, see how seagrass can tackle these issues, and then based on this, start together with local stakeholders, with regional councils, also to start coming up with some water quality guidelines and monitoring tools that people can use there to actually look at the water quality and like as an indicator, like seagrass as an indicator and as a monitoring tool for water quality in the area.
Yeah. Okay.
Because especially so we have been to Zanzibar now, and especially where we are planning to work. In the last 10-15 years, a lot of hotels have popped up on the East Coast, especially, and all the wastewater is not really treated. They just have septic tanks, and it basically runs directly into the ocean.
Oh, right.
And there's a lot of algae farmers that actually like live from algae farming right there, and they have a lot of issues nowadays with like rashes, but also there's like cyanobacteria overgrown on the algae.
Oh, okay.
Then we work together with an NGO that has sponge farms there, and also those have a lot of issues since the last years, and they suspect it's the water quality.
I see. Okay.
In the lagoon. So yeah, the first idea would be to actually check if that's true, if the water quality has decreased there, and then to see what benefits do seagrass meadows bring, and if we can actually make use of them, and then all this restoration project would be like an outlook. Maybe if we could somehow prolong the project, maybe this could be done in the future. But that's not, at least not part of the current project so far.
But that kind of like sounded that it's not really known whether it's the pollution actually causing the issues. But would you investigate this as well, or? Yeah,
so we want to do some surveys there on water quality in general.
Okay.
And then have few comparable sites to actually identify what is the huge issue is going on there. How much have those new hotels polluted the whole lagoon?
Yeah.
What are the consequences for like local fishermen, for local algae farmers, for the sponge farmers, and then to see how we can tackle this, maybe with help of seagrass.
And how would you do that? How would you involve the seagrass in the?
Well, first of all, I would like to use seagrass as a simple monitoring tool, because so we had this, like when we went to Tanzania and had this kickoff meeting, we actually, everybody had to start thinking about their project and come up with like a few phrases, short summaries and of their project, and ours was, if I recall correctly, like healthy seagrass, healthy people. So the idea would be to actually see how is the current status of the seagrass meadows, and does this relate to water quality?
I see, yeah.
And if then we can, by simple monitoring tools from local people, maybe kind of have this indicator if water quality turns worse. Then we have to, for example, come up with some guidelines, have to come up with some restrictions for hotels, maybe when it comes to their sewage water.
I see, okay.
So this kind of idea.
And you mentioned some stakeholders that are involved. Which ones are they?
So far, we work together with this NGO, with the coral sponge farmers. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's actually a Swiss NGO, but they're based there, and they have sponge nurseries in the deeper sea.
What's the Swiss NGO called?
It's called Marine Cultures.
Okay.
And so they have sponge nurseries in deeper water, and then work together with local women from the area, which then basically grow those sponges in the shallow waters and sell them then for tourists, but also sell them back to the NGO so the NGO makes no profit. They just basically buy all the sponges from them, so they have like a stable income. And they are really keen, of course, on finding out what the issues, the late issues, have been on their sponges, and why they have been, or why they haven't grown that well.
Okay.
So hopefully we might also collaborate with WIOMSA together, which is
the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Organization.
Yes. So they have been quite involved with Meerwissen in general. So this would be a potential project partner, and then in South Africa also a lot with those local councils and national parks there. So the South African team, they already have quite some tight collaborations with them.
Right.
I think it's going to be like maybe in Tanzania and South Africa each like 3 or 4 stakeholders, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we're still just in the co-design phase of the project. So the project hasn't even started yet. It's going to start in February. So we still kind of have to decide with whom we work together.
Okay. Yeah. Very early doors.
Yeah. So this is a quite nice thing of this whole project. So they actually you first of all you have to like submit like a preliminary proposal basically, and this is then, if it's accepted, then you have this half a year or 9 months even time for the co-design phase where all the project partners and the stakeholders get together and actually come up with like a common agenda.
Design it together.
And then you start to actually work on the project. So we're still in an early stage.
And your role isn't really set yet in stone, or your specific job, basically?
No, not really. I think it's just so I always struggle a bit with the whole structure with HIFMB, University of Oldenburg. So Peter Schupp from University of Oldenburg is involved. He's also, of course, from the HIFMB. So I'm not really sure like how to describe this the best. And then Sven Rode from ICBM. So and I'm basically, I think, one of the main project partners from HIFMB.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool project coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. Then let's look into your CV for a bit. So you're German.
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, you grew up quite near from me. I think I'm from Leipzig.
Ah, okay, cool. Yeah. I'm from Chemnitz, which is like
super close.
45 minutes or so drive.
Yeah. In the east of Germany. Did you and you did your masters in Freiburg? Your bachelor's. So your scientific career started in Freiburg.
Yeah. So in the south of Germany, because I think my grades weren't good enough to actually get into biology. Then I had to take a little detour with like environmental science, which was without any like NC numerus clausus.
Without entry requirements.
Yeah. You could just sign up and then you were in there. So
what drew you to Freiburg, the south?
I mean,
the Black Forest.
I'm not really like a forest person, but
are you not? Okay.
But the climate maybe.
Yeah.
And like a student city, it sounded really like a good place to actually do your studies. And
was it?
It was awesome. Yeah, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
And quite far from family for the first time, which is also nice, maybe to be a bit more independent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you while you were there, you also did like a studies abroad trip where you then actually did biology, right? In Bilbao in Spain,
Yeah, but I took a few courses, but everything was in Spanish, so it was just...
Oh, the entire course was in Spanish?
Yeah. So I'm not even sure if I passed a single one there. Because,
right.
Because of language issues.
Do you speak Spanish a little? Or?
Back then, a bit, but then I haven't used it anymore since.
Oh, okay.
Ever since, so...
Yeah. Where do you think it is, your Spanish?
Like really, really basic.
I think. Okay.
Not sure if I would pass an A1.
Yeah, okay. And then you from there you moved to Oldenburg actually for a master's.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so environmental modeling, statistics was always on the forefront of your.
Well, I actually started with marine environmental sciences, but then switched to environmental modeling because I think all the modules were you could just take models from both courses. Okay. And then I think the idea was I just realized I could graduate a bit earlier if I take environmental modeling because there was one course that I would have to add for marine environmental science. So I think it was just a bit more practical to actually finish with environmental modeling.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think the courses were the same, more or less. So I think you're quite free to choose whatever you want here at the university, which is quite nice.
So that's your first experience with Oldenburg done, and then is that what? Did you like it here? Did you live here, or?
Yeah, I lived here first in Oldenburg for 1.5 years, and then I moved to Bremen.
Yeah, right.
Just for like a bit big city vibes. So
yeah, exactly. Yes.
But I really enjoy Oldenburg still. Like it's a nice place.
Nice. That's what drew you back to the city.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for your thesis, you also worked on alternate stable states. So that's something I worked on as well during my PhD. Did you work on feedbacks as well? So on ecological feedbacks?
No, not really. We did this bit more like we tried to work a bit on feedbacks later on during my PhD experimentally. But this never really works like you expect it to work.
Yeah.
So, but back in New Zealand, this was they had like this disturbance recovery model.
Oh, hold on. In New Zealand, so that's so from during your masters in Oldenburg, you then did I
did my master thesis in New Zealand. That was the basically my master thesis project was the alternate stable states.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
and that was for how long were you there?
For 6 or 7 months.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Your supervisor here was Jan Freund.
Yeah,
and
then in New Zealand was Carolyn Lundquist from NIVA.
Okay.
It's the National Institute for Water and Atmospheric Research, I think.
Right.
So like a semi-commercial institute. So they both do like research, but also commercial contracting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit odd how it works there.
All right.
But yeah, and there I worked on like some disturbance model of benthic ecosystems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time in New Zealand. How was that?
It's amazing, like to.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I didn't have much time to actually get out of the office so much.
Oh, I see.
So, and also in New Zealand, you can't do much without a car either, because they don't have like public transport.
Yeah.
So I didn't see much actually. I just like visited a few cities, but I haven't really seen much of nature there.
Where is Niva? Is that in
It's in Hamilton.
Hamilton. Okay.
So that's like, I guess, like the. I don't know. It's not really like a pretty city. It's the middle of, in between Auckland and Wellington. It's like halfway there.
Right. I've never been to New Zealand. Is that North or South Island?
North Island. I've actually never seen the South Island.
Okay.
Which is like a lot of people like just laugh about me when you go to like for 6 months to New Zealand, you haven't seen the South Island. It's probably not a good thing, I guess.
Okay. Well, you were busy with work.
Yeah.
Okay, and then PhD started. In the same year when you finished your masters, and for that you went to Finland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get that position?
This was actually because of my time in New Zealand. They have quite, from the researcher from NIVA, they have quite some close ties to Finnish researchers.
Okay.
And since I didn't want to go so far away for a PhD, my supervisor then, Carolyn, she suggested to go to Finland if you want to do something. And
does she have ties with Scandinavia? She sounds Scandinavian.
Yeah, but this is like unrelated, I think.
Right. Okay.
So this is like third generation back.
Oh, I see.
Something like she's American, so there's a lot of know.
Right. Okay. And so they suggested you for the. Or they highlighted the position to you, and then you had to apply?
Yeah, she showed me like a few positions there of friends she has worked with before, and so and said this could be like a good place to go.
Yeah,
like this would be maybe something that would suit you.
Nice. And that's the first time that you work with seagrass, then? Yeah.
Actually, I applied for the position, didn't even know what seagrass is, so it was a bit
perfect.
Yeah.
And were you based? Yeah, where were you based? What's the uni called?
The uni is called Åbo Academy.
Okay.
So it's a Swedish-speaking university in Finland. They have a Swedish-speaking minority in Finland.
Oh, okay.
So 5% of the population speaks Swedish, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Along the coastline mostly.
Yeah.
And this is the university is in Turku, or Åbo in Swedish.
Okay. Right.
So that's why it's called Åbo Academy.
Yeah, okay. Now it all makes sense. So you weren't based in Helsinki?
No.
Okay.
But it's just like 2 hours drive, so it's...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was wondering why in your CV it doesn't actually say that you speak Finnish but Swedish.
Yeah.
So it's because of that?
Yeah. So I took a Swedish course instead of a Finnish course because all my colleagues were Swedish speaking, and then in Turku also, like I think there's like at least like 10% who speak Swedish instead of like everywhere else.
Yeah, right.
So it's like considered like the Swedish capital of Finland, because actually when Finland still belonged to Sweden, it was the actual capital of Finland.
Okay.
So
now it all makes sense. So and your supervisor was Christopher Boström.
Yeah.
Who is Swedish, presumably?
No, he's Finnish but Swedish speaking.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's. That's a difference.
Yeah, okay. And sorry.
No, continue.
Okay. And so then you actually work with feedbacks in seagrass communities.
Yeah, a tiny bit.
Yeah.
At least seagrass as ecosystem engineers, they depend a lot on feedbacks, right? So the more denser the seagrass meadows are, the more they can actually filter the water column from particles or so, and the more light they actually get. So they have like positive feedbacks with their own density. Mm-hmm. The more seagrass is there, the more stable it actually is.
Yeah. So maybe it's worth getting into what an ecosystem engineer is.
Oh yeah, well that's true.
Yeah.
So, well, I would consider an ecosystem engineer like any organism that actually directly or indirectly sort of affects their environment.
Yeah, exactly.
And also affects other organisms around them. So I guess seagrasses are quite classical examples for ecosystem engineers because they have a huge effect on hydrodynamics. They reduce currents and waves, so they provide a lot of shelter for associated organisms there.
Yeah.
They can stabilize the sediment, reduce erosion through their roots. So they have quite a strong effect on their surroundings.
Okay.
I think like the most classical example from the terrestrial world is probably like a beaver who builds a dam.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I guess that's what they like the
exactly. Yeah. Who
textbook example of an ecosystem engineer.
Yeah. Exactly. An extraordinary impact on its ecosystem that it lives in. Yeah. Exactly. Sweet. The feedbacks actually I work with were macroalgal based on coral reefs, and they have the exact same. Like when they get denser and denser, fish for some reason feed less on them, and then the herbivory or the plant eating pressure is lessened, and then they get even denser and denser. So it's also density. It's
yeah.
But in this case, you actually want seagrass. On coral reefs, you don't want algae.
Yeah.
But yeah, very very interesting parallels.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels between all those, habitat forming species.
And is Toko by the sea or Obo?
Yeah, it's directly by the sea.
By the Baltic Sea.
Yeah.
And that's where your field work also.
No, but there's like this huge archipelago with like 50,000 islands, which is like right in front of Turku in the Baltic Sea, and on one of those islands we had our field station.
Nice.
So, which is quite a beautiful place to be, actually.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Did you spend a lot of time there?
All my summers, I think. There.
Yeah, nice.
It's quite isolated, so you're basically alone for most of the summer.
Yeah.
But it's really beautiful. It's really nice.
Yeah, and like one of your, I think we also our timelines for like PhD and all that line up very very nicely. Like in 2019, I thought you had your first author paper. Is it the same in Finland or in the Swedish system? I don't know, like Finnish and Swedish system, that you write your thesis in chapters, and each chapter is a publication or can be a publication? Yeah.
That's the same. It isn't the same in Germany? I don't know.
I didn't.
You can have those monographs, right, where you're just...
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes it depends on you, I think. And
but I think this came in a bit more handy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
At least if you want to stay in science, I guess, and then you need the publications anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So
and in 2019, your publishing career kicked off. Yeah.
So where have you been for your?
In Lancaster, in the northwest of England, like an hour north of Liverpool.
So it's the same there then with publishing chapters,
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can do monographs, I think too, but it's my supervisor advised me not to do it.
Yeah,
exactly. So and then let's talk about one of your recent publications, which actually is on seagrass, and it is. Let me find it. Sorry. So it is on seagrasses as coastal ecosystem engineers and how they affect sediments, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But in interaction with bivalves, mussels.
Yeah. So actually, during my PhD, my supervisor and his group, they worked in this project MASSES, which is one of those Horizon 2020 projects on ecosystem restoration. So restoration of coastal habitats, and he focusing on seagrass. And there was quite some research done already on how bivalves could potentially facilitate seagrass.
Yeah.
So we wanted to explore this a bit more, how like the bivalves in the Baltic Sea in this area can actually benefit maybe seagrass as well. So I was focusing a bit on this seagrass-bivalve interactions.
How do they do it? Like how do bivalves facilitate seagrass?
Well, I mean, there's different mechanisms, of course,
right.
Really context dependent, depending on the environment, depending on where you are. But of course, they can, through their deposits, like biodeposition, they just fertilize the sediment. This is one way they can facilitate seagrass.
I see. Okay.
They can, of course, filter a lot of particles out of the water column.
Yeah.
So they actually increase light penetration
and
for seagrass, which is also
photosynthetic.
Yeah.
Makes it better for them.
I think there's also like other other studies showing that they actually can protect them from storms as well, because they anchor them a bit, especially like those, I don't know, like blue mussels that can form quite dense and stable like patches in seagrass meadows. So
okay.
And then this usually works like vice versa. So it's considered a mutualism depending on where you are, of course. There's also negative effects between those, but we at least thought that seagrass can also benefit bivalves there in the area. So we wanted to look into this a bit more closely, and I was focusing a bit then on hydrodynamics and how they both affect.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to get into that. Did you have experience before that with oceanography? And
no, not really, but we had or had like with, I don't know, my like third supervisor, unofficial supervisor. Yeah. He was working in Gothenburg or Christineberg, the field station of University of Gothenburg, on hydrodynamics. And so for one chapter, I just went there to do some work at his station, and he has all those cool wave flumes and current flumes, so you can play around a lot with those tanks.
Yeah.
Simulating different waves and currents and see how the animals and the plants react to this. So and then I got a bit into this.
Yeah.
So
maybe for visualization, does it look like a wind canal a little bit, but in the water?
Yeah, a bit maybe and maybe a bit smaller. I don't know.
A much smaller. Yeah.
So it's like a. How can you describe it? Like a huge basin where you have a paddle at the end, and it just moves the water around and creates waves.
Yeah. And then you see how they move with like dye with color, or no?
No, but we have you can measure them, of course. With you have those ADVs, acoustic Doppler velocimeter. Fancy tools that can actually can measure the wave intensity, the speed, so the orbital velocity of the waves, and so on.
All right.
And then we were interested in how seagrass can affect both like the wave velocity, but also the effect of waves on sediment and sediment transport.
And so back to your publication, you investigated the interaction between two species. Multiple species, right?
Yeah, so multiple species. So, but always like seagrass in combination with one bivalve species. So
but it was one species of seagrass.
Yeah. So there is just one species of seagrass, like in the Baltic Sea.
I see. Okay.
And I think they in the Wadden Sea they have two, which look quite similar, just different in size. Okay. So there's not so much diversity up here in the north. Like they get more diverse in the tropics, but but you don't have so many species here.
Yeah. Do you know the English name?
Eelgrass.
Eelgrass, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so normally, for background purposes, normally I think in such interaction studies are quite rare because interactions are always really tricky statistically. So most studies actually do single effects.
Yeah.
That's what really sets your study apart, because it's one of these interaction studies. Was it in situ? Like, did you do your work in the field, or was it a lab study?
It was a lab study.
Okay.
So and we worked with two labs. Like one of them was the one in Sweden with those with their wave tank.
Okay.
And then we also decided to get some little wave tanks in Finland.
Yeah, right.
So and then somebody had to test them and do some first project with them. So that was me then.
Okay.
So we combined those two studies to one because they work on a quite similar topic on erosion of sediment in basically different coastal ecosystems. And both in the Baltic Sea, also in the this was the Swedish west coast, the other part.
Yeah.
You have quite often a lot of bivalves intermixed with seagrass meadows, so you can get cockles and high abundances in seagrass meadows, clams, blue mussels, and then Swedish west coast sometimes also oysters nowadays. So,
right, nice. And but it's not really clear how oysters interact with seagrass or eelgrass.
Not really, because I think the Pacific oyster they have there now has been introduced was in the 60s or so for aquaculture reasons.
Okay, all right.
And they they don't really intermix so much with seagrass. If they get too dense, I think the seagrass is not so happy. But quite often you have like those single oysters or like small patches in the meadows. But there hasn't been done so much on that so far, I think.
Okay,
and at least not in the area.
Yeah. So the study that we're talking about that came out this year, right?
Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get there. Like.
Yeah. Was it the biggest paper or the biggest chapter of your PhD? Or?
At least the one that I liked the most.
I think. Right. Okay. Because of that interaction, or why?
Yeah, but also about I love those hydrodynamics. It's cool. It's like nice to like work with those flumes and wave tanks and I think I don't know. I just liked it.
Yeah.
Far the most.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always a bit like you know. At least it was for me, so that like for the first chapters I wasn't really like super happy about them, and you're like, okay, it's okay, but well,
exactly the same for me. I've got 2 chapters that I'm not super happy about, and 2 that I am really proud of. But you said it took a while. Did it take long because of the publication or the work or?
Mostly the publication process was quite long, I think. But
okay.
Yeah.
It's a good journal that it came out though, Limnology and Oceanography.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. Nice. Congrats.
Thanks.
So let's talk about what you actually found.
Yeah.
Maybe I give the word to you.
Yeah, thanks. So we had those two different study sites. So we did like the experiment in Finland, and there we looked on seagrass in combination with the Baltic clam, which is like Limicola baltica, I think the Latin name, which is quite abundant in seagrass meadows there.
Okay.
And in Sweden we looked on cockles and oysters and seagrass together.
Okay.
And the idea was to see how they actually affect sediment transport under different wave strengths. And because it's known that seagrass at least can reduce sediment erosion, there's also some studies on how bivalves can reduce sediment erosion if they are like epiphyal bivalves.
Yeah.
So bivalves that actually sit on top of the sediment. Then infaunal bivalves that live in the sediment, like clams and cockles, for example, they are usually suggested to have a bit more like a positive effect on erosion processes. So they increase erosion because they move through the sediment.
Yeah, they destabilize the sediment.
Yeah,
right, okay.
So, and we wanted to look on those different kind of like functions in combination. So what we found was actually that surprisingly, like this in Finland and in the Baltic Sea, this infaunal clam, the Baltic clam, had a positive effect on sediment stabilization, which was a bit against what we thought in the beginning. We thought
they interaction with eelgrass,
but also alone. It was
okay.
Yeah, right. And we assumed that it's because of the sediment, which was quite coarse, and this sediment. I guess like resuspension doesn't play such a big role. So the finer particles, they are not there.
Yeah.
So they don't really resuspend particles into the water column.
Okay.
But just through their pure like physical structure in the sediment, they might just kind of reduce transport.
Okay.
And then this effect was, of course, the strongest when seagrass and those clams were combined together.
Yeah. Okay.
So there wasn't like anything like a huge interaction between them, but was just like a quite additive positive effect on sediment stabilization between the two.
So they do well together. They would.
Yeah.
Okay.
They both basically stabilize the sediment alone and in combination. And we also found at least that there was a slight positive effect on dislodgement of seagrass shoots when the clams were there.
Yeah.
So they actually anchored the clams a bit at different, especially at higher wave velocities.
So there's positive effects between them, and they
actually they're not really strong. Also, we didn't have maybe enough replicates to actually go through this a bit more carefully. But at least there's an indication that those clams can anchor seagrasses, and maybe therefore also maybe some measure in when you want to do some restoration in like more exposed sites.
Yeah, exactly. So could they counteract erosion if there's like a huge or a huge field of or a meadow? I don't know what you call it. A meadow with clams and seagrass together. Could they maybe counteract erosion?
Well, I mean, at least this is a bit what the study indicates, but then it's still it's a lab study, right? So it's really hard to extrapolate this to the field. So where wave conditions might be completely different to what we have. We had quite like a really clean
simulated
wave. So this is more like a mechanistic paper, maybe to just look first of all on some interactions and some mechanisms.
Exactly. I mean that's what you need at first. And what did you find with the other two clams?
So with the oysters, we didn't find any effect, which is surprising because I mean all the papers say that like oysters reduce erosion, of course, but only when they are like in those big oyster reefs. Since in the seagrass meadows they're just like individual oysters. And we used those densities. And we couldn't find a strong effect on sediment erosion. But
can you remind me? Do they sit on the sediment or in the sediment?
Depends a bit on the sediment. I mean, they sit on the sediment.
Right. Okay.
But if it's a bit muddier, they can also like
go into it a little.
They don't go in, but they stay basically erect.
Right.
So they look out of the sediment. So they're a bit more like, let's say, a few centimeters in.
Okay.
But they have different positions actually depending on the sediment type.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So no effect with
oysters, but we just looked on basically effects of 3 oysters in those tanks.
Okay.
But the cockle,
the third one,
they had a really destabilizing effect on sediment erosion.
Oh, okay.
And I guess the most surprising result from the study was that so seagrass has a positive effect, the cockles have a negative effect, but when you combine them, this negative effect is completely vanished. You just have the positive effect of seagrass on sediment stabilization.
So it completely overtakes.
Yeah, there's no difference if you have seagrass alone or seagrass with cockles. They just stabilize the sediment.
Interesting.
Whereas when you have just cockles, they destabilize the sediment.
But cockles, they don't do anything negative for seagrass, so they don't do anything on the dislodgement part, or.
I mean, there's not so many studies on cockles and seagrass, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can't recall if I have seen any study on cockles and seagrass interactions. But I mean,
in yours you didn't find it.
No.
Wow, that's some interesting results. So do you think that maybe the I guess the most positive outcome would be the one with the clam, the interaction?
Yeah.
And do you think that could actually work with restoration projects as well, or work towards restoration?
Well, the thing is, we also done a few other studies on this Baltic clam with seagrass, and once you have a positive effect, then next time you have a negative effect. It's I don't know if it's just like context dependent or if it's just like really like a variable as well. You would just have a huge variation between the effects depending on maybe the density as well, and the area where you put them. So,
but you definitely laid the groundworks for more studies to be done.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure.
So I think at least what we assumed is that in those more exposed sites, they can have a benefit for seagrasses. Whereas maybe in those more sheltered sites where you also have finer sediment, higher nutrients already in the sediment, they might actually have a more negative or slightly negative effect on seagrass.
Wow.
So I guess seagrass restoration is always tricky, so it really depends on your environmental conditions
exactly.
in situ. So
okay, cool. So we're already at the 45-minute mark almost.
Cool.
Is there anything you want to add that hasn't been highlighted, or anything?
No, but just I don't think so.
No,
just want to say thanks to you.
Yeah, no worries.
Really cool format. I like it.
Yeah, cool.
So, have you ever been interviewed?
I have not yet. No.
Okay.
Maybe at some point at like a millennium episode. No, I'm not that important. I don't know. At like episode 19 or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Then thank you very much for coming.
Yeah. Perfect.
See you around.
See you around.
Want to dive deeper? Surf over to hifmb.de or follow us on Twitter at hifmb_OL.